Hey everyone, welcome. It's Ryan Coyle, broker and owner of Connect.ca. I'm here with James Benson, representative sales and marketing for Colterra Group. Mainly, we're here to talk about Apex. It's a really exciting project in Hamilton. I'm personally investing a lot in Hamilton. I'm really excited about the market. It's great to have the pleasure to speak with you. I always love talking to other investors. I know you've had a lot of success in not only sales and marketing of real estate, but also in investing in it. So you don't only you not only talk the talk, you walk the walk. And I'm really excited to have a conversation. And for those of you that are tuning in, we'll be sending out a recording of this as well, so you could jump to different parts. But at a high level, I'd really love to talk about what's happening in the market, what's happening specifically in Hamilton. For me, I'm really excited because I made a lot of money investing in Toronto real estate. I'm seeing a lot of similarities in the Hamilton market, and that's where I'm putting a lot of my focus now. Same with my very savvy investor clients. Then I'm excited to talk about this project. It's a really exciting project and an exciting market, and I think it really stands out from other projects. So can't wait to pick your brain on that, and then we'll just kind of see where the conversation goes. So James, if you don't mind, let's jump into it, and I'd just love to hear. You're on the ground floor in Hamilton. You're selling for this project. You've had many successful projects. One in particular that recently came online. We're seeing record high rents in Hamilton. So maybe just give me an idea of what we're seeing in the Hamilton market for investors on the resale rental side, also on the pre-construction side.
Yeah, for sure. And if you think I missed anything, please let me know. I think what we're seeing in Hamilton, I know you and I have had this conversation in the past, is like this is a lot like what we saw in the King West area of Toronto 20 years ago. And we know what happened there in terms of values. And Hamilton is much the same way. It's a city that for a long time had a reputation as a steel town. And over the past decade and a half has really begun to reimagine and repurpose itself. So it's a steel town that's transitioning slowly into a tech town. A huge influx of millennials and younger, I want to call them kids. I don't want to date myself here. But a younger demographic is definitely moving there, as well as retirees and people downsizing, selling from more central to Toronto and taking their money and heading out that way. But as these people show up, Hamilton has been forced to again reimagine themselves. So I think well with the amount that you've done in Hamilton about, I guess, the redevelopment of all the waterfront there. I think there's about 4.4 billion being spent in redeveloping that section of Hamilton, taking that ugly industrial area and making it beautiful again. The investments in the LRT and transit, GO access, and I've had a lot of people really start to understand that Hamilton is not that far. I mean, if I want to get from one side of Toronto to the other right now, especially during rush hour, it's probably 45 minutes to an hour, especially with the Gardner ramp closed down. Yeah. And I think, I've had a number of friends move out to the West End. The West End, I mean, Burlington, Hamilton, et cetera. And one of the reasons for that is they can commute in on the GO train. They work to and from work, so their commute is no longer time wasted in the car. It's actually productive working hours and things like that. So the Hamilton itself has received a lot of acceptance from people that really start to look at it for what it is, and it's a place where they can buy real estate at really great prices when you compare it to downtown Toronto. There's a lot of upside. I think the city of Hamilton's been named the #1 place to invest by multiple magazines and multiple sources, a lot for over the past decade. But it's one of those things where no one knows about it, no one really talks about it, and everyone that kind of grew up knowing Hamilton, the steel town, goes, Hamilton, really? But yeah, no, it's moving, and it's moving big. And I guess one example of that, and I think you mentioned this earlier when you were asking me the questions, was a recent project by the same developer that we're going to be talking about today, Colterra Developments. We sold a building for them back in late 2018, 2019. And I know that when we sold that project, we were forecasting rents to be, let's say on the one unit that I bought for myself and I got for my mother in that project as well, I was forecasting rents to be I think it was like $2,360 a month. We'll call it 2,400 because the math is easier.
What was that for a 2-bedroom?
It was a 2-bedroom. Yeah, it was a 2-bedroom. And when it came time to lease these up, because that building occupied and closed at the end of 2022.
Yeah.
I rented those units out for $3,200 or $3,300 a month. So, no one complained about the extra $1,000 a month. Everyone was pretty happy with me on that one. But it's one of those things where again, there's so much upward pressure on rents these days because of immigration, because of just various population trends and things like that. But on top of that, Hamilton is seeing some of the nicest new buildings that city has seen in a long time with a lot of these recent developments. And because of that, you know, prices are moving up all across Hamilton. People's willingness to live there because they've got great places to live now is going up, and rent's going up. I mean, that's, you know, outside of, I guess, all the immigration forces that are coming now.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's a few things you said there. So I started selling and investing in Hamilton probably 4 or 5 years ago, because I saw a lot of those things that made Toronto the great city it is start to happen in Hamilton. And one of the things you mentioned was the transit. So people used to look at Hamilton as outside the GTA. Now it's technically not the GTA, but it now connects to it. And I saw that as a huge indication that prices would go up and rents would go up, because all of a sudden you're connecting this outlier, this city that is much more affordable than Toronto, and it's now connected by train, because that's where people do flock from an affordability perspective on both the rent and the purchasing side. And as a natural extension of that, as more population growth happens, a city starts to develop and starts catering to those new people. So I grew up in Brantford, just next to Hamilton, and it's shocking to see the changes that have taken place in Hamilton. I've driven to Hamilton quite a lot over the last year or so, just, you know, doing a lot of sales there and investing myself. And it's incredible. I could honestly see myself potentially living there someday, because it's a small version of Toronto. It's got skyscrapers, it's got transit, it's got great neighborhoods and restaurants now. It has the waterfront that is about to revitalize. You know, I used to be a member of the Hamilton Yacht Club, and I'd go sailing, and it was like industrialized area, and that's going to be completely different soon. So I just want to touch on that, because all this is really important. When I started investing heavily in condos and pre-construction homes, and probably nearly 20 years ago, I looked at different markets. I had previously invested in Hamilton and multi-res, but I was burnt out, didn't want to do multi-res, and invested in a condo in downtown Toronto. And it was just hands off. It was easy. It was scalable. It was just like, I can do a lot of this and a lot of real estate. This doesn't take too much of my time or energy. So I said, okay, what's a market that I can see myself building a portfolio of 10, 20 properties? And I looked at the fundamentals that drive a real estate market. And, you know, Toronto had everything. It had the infrastructure, had all levels of government investing in the city. It had transit. So it had, you know, the subway, all of the other, you know, transit that's available throughout the city, go trains and everything. And then it had world-class hospitals, world-class universities. What else did it have? It had, you know, job growth, obviously, but it had a waterfront as well. And there's a lot of money, revitalization money going into it. And when you look at Hamilton, it has all of those things currently lined up. And I don't know any other city that has, you know, all of those things lined up to the, you know, the degree that Hamilton does. You know, you've got over $4 billion of all levels of government money going into revitalization, infrastructure, transit, McMaster University, hospital, obviously. So a lot of really exciting things coming to the market. Where do you see the Hamilton market going? Do you see those similarities as well?
Oh, 100%. And I'm glad you brought up the economic fundamentals, because I think, you know, you're one of the few people that get out there and talk about it. And I think when you've got that kind of vision and foresight looking into an area, that's where you tend to do well. Like you mentioned, buying, you know, condos in Toronto 20 years ago. Obviously, you know, anyone who bought anything in Toronto 20 years ago has done well on them. But, you know, when you're making real estate investments, I think that's the first thing you need to do is actually look at the economic fundamentals of an area. You know, you touched on transit, the business, the future development plans by the local government, et cetera, things that are going to bring people into that area or attract people into that area. Because ultimately, this game just comes down to supply and demand. If you're an investor, you want to buy in areas that are going to be in higher demand. Now, lots of things can drive demand. You know, population, people moving into an area can drive demand. What causes people to move into an area? Things like pricing. So how I always used to explain Hamilton, and I've been looking at Hamilton as a place to invest since 2008.
Yeah.
And we've been moving clients into that area in other businesses since about 2012. It's, you know, we've done well there. We believed in it for a very long time. We've understood what was coming. Change happens slowly, but it's really, really picking up now. I think your assessment is quite accurate. But what I used to say to people is, it's half the price of Toronto and 80% of the rent.
Right.
And so anytime you're looking at, getting a mortgage, let's say that's half of what you would get in other areas, but you're getting, 80% of the rent, you're going to find yourself in a better position for, let's say cash flow, better, your returns are better, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree 100% with your assessment. And it's a place where, like you mentioned, you invest in Hamilton. I've invested in Hamilton. I've got my mother to invest in Hamilton. My best friends invest in Hamilton because
So,
I'm sure if you're like me, when you get the reputation of making a lot of good real estate investments over time, people come to you, not just clients, but your friends, your family, and they want to know, hey, Ryan, where do I put my money? Or hey, Ryan, what should I do? Because they want to emulate the success that you've had. And so, again, Hamilton's been on the radar for quite a while, and I am 100% in agreement with your assessment. I do believe in this market, and that's why I own there, and that's why I help my mother own there, my best friends own there, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, it always feels good putting those people closest to you in a really good market that you're confident in. And most of our purchasers, clients, investments, I think, I'll always look at Toronto as a blue chip. I still invest in
yeah,
Toronto.
for sure.
But Hamilton's exciting because I think there could potentially be more upside because it is that kind of condo boom story that Toronto had 20 years ago. So I think that's exciting, but it's also more affordable for the newbie investor, and that like you said, the rents. It's people don't really talk about cash flow anymore, and cash flow to me isn't the most important part of a real estate investment, but it's also nice to have it, obviously. And in Hamilton, I don't know any other market when you're looking at buying a pre-construction condo where it's 3 to 5 years out, where you're going to have positive cash flow, potentially with the rates, the way rents are increasing these days, and with supply and demand, which we'll get into. But I mean, based on like a projected growth rate of past growth, it's not likely in most projects, but in Hamilton, it's amazing. We'll get into the cash flow projections for your project, but really, really exciting. You touched on supply and demand, so I want to take this a little bit more macro. We obviously know why Hamilton has such a bright future, but let's look at it more macro. Like what's happening with supply and demand, because we're going into a really interesting time. And I find people complicate investing in real estate. It's not rocket science. It's not at all. Now, I think if you want to grow a large portfolio, I think there's a lot of noise out there, and I think it's really important to have someone guide you who has done it themselves. But when I look at it, it's like supply and demand. So if the supply and demand fundamentals are as strong as they are, I think real estate is a great investment. And I know you and I have talked about it. So like, what is your kind of take on the current macro supply and demand story?
Well, I think, like you said, you want to look to people that have done it before. And I find, whenever you're talking with investors, their Uncle Bob or their Aunt Susie has a story about why investing in real estate is bad. And I don't know if you've ever seen the meme out there, or there's a chart of some kind. It's like every reason not to buy real estate since 1920. It's like, well, there's a stock market crash, or there's this, that. And I think we can all agree that, the best time to buy real estate was 10 years ago or last year, but the next best time to buy it, if you haven't bought it, is now. And that's just highlighted by, I guess, the past success. So coming back to your question there about where sorry, can you just I want to make sure I answer your question.
So like, yeah, I think just to kind of simplify it, like, where do you see
the macro
the prices going and rents going in terms of what's happening right now in supply and demand?
Well, I think when you look at supply and demand right now, we have, I think the numbers are 500,000 new immigrants coming into the country every year. It's
well.
it's so that, 500,000 people coming in, and then
that's
when
Ontario.
you look,
that's Ontario.
Yeah,
in the last
sorry.
12 months, there was 1 million in Canada.
Huge. So okay, we'll deal with Ontario because we're dealing with Ontario now. So say 500,000 in Ontario.
Yeah.
And then you look at all the new builds, all the new homes that are starting. So we agree that everyone coming into this country needs a roof over their head.
Yeah.
And when you look at the rate of development, I think we're 120,000 units per year short. So
124,000. But yeah,
124. Excuse me. Sorry. Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you for the correction.
to be honest, I probably rounded up, but we're looking at the same stats. It's incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's nowhere for pricing to go but up. And to your point, it's the simplest in macroeconomics. When demand outstrips supply, we see prices going up. And we've seen that, for example, in Toronto for the past several years. And you mentioned Toronto being a blue chip stock. I always look at Toronto as the epicenter of Canada, especially and definitely in Ontario real estate. So you drop a pebble in the pond that is Toronto, and it ripples and it ripples and it ripples and it ripples. Like people will just start going down the road. I can't afford Toronto. It's tough to afford Toronto. It's very, very difficult for people to buy investment real estate sometimes, or even their own home in Toronto. So they go to the next market, to the next market, to the next market. And so everything gets dragged up as Toronto goes up. Looking at just the macroeconomic forces, I think supply and demand, I think the immigration, I think it's driving up rents. I mean, we've seen that, and I'm sure you've seen that across your portfolio right now, is the amount of rental growth that's happened in this province over the past 3 to 4 years has been insane. It's been a pleasant surprise, actually. But I don't see that getting any softer or any smaller anytime soon, because we're just going to let in more people, which is more people competing for less and less places to live. So I think, long term, short term, pricing should continue to head up and rent should continue to head up. And that's just based on immigration alone.
Yeah, not even to talk about the aging population, what's happening internally. What's really interesting as well, and when I kind of said, what were those driving factors to make Toronto a Toronto condo boom story, and one of them was world-renowned hospitals and world-renowned schools. There's the GTA markets, Oakville, Burlington, Richmond Hill. They're all doing incredibly well. Most markets in Canada are doing well or have been on and off during COVID, which weren't typically strong investor markets. So I don't want people to lose sight of the fundamentals of what drives out good markets, because it's not always going to be this way in all markets. So the thing I really like about Hamilton, again, is it's, all those other markets have transit, but you've got a world-renowned school and you've got a world-renowned hospital. So that is driving people, even though, 500,000 immigrants came in, not all of them are permanent. So a lot of them aren't going to schools. They're not going to cities like Mississauga or Richmond Hill. But Hamilton sees a lot of that influx. And I think that's why Hamilton has, there's no other market that I know of that has the cost to purchase rent ratio that Hamilton really has. So I think that's a lot of it driving. I didn't even really think about that until you were just saying all this. That makes total sense.
And just to piggyback on your stories are about having the universities or the hospitals in town, because a university is a major economic engine for any city. When it came time to renting our last project, because people bought, my mom bought, as I mentioned. I always like to talk about my mom. We put a resident physician.
How well did she do on her investment? I'm just curious. I'm sure she thanked you.
She did very, very well on that. I think she bought for. She more than doubled her money, because she only put in 20%, obviously, when you put it down. But I think she did about a 3-bag return on her money. So 3 times return on her down payment before we'd actually ever closed on the property, before we ever got to occupancy. And she's done well since then. So the property has almost doubled from when she bought it.
Yeah. How many years ago?
She bought that at the end of 2018. So we had the ride up, and then, the check last year check earlier this year when interest rates were scaring everybody. But now as people come back into the market and we see things kind of taking back off again, the prices are heading back up. She's always done very, very well on that unit. It's funny. I had one of my good friends, he got 2 in the project. This is one of my favorite stories. I called him one day because I'd been doing assignments for the clients and things like that, and just approving the deals and getting them through.
Yeah.
And so I called him. I said, "Hey, just so you know, on your 2 condos, you're up about 370,000 right now." He said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "No." And he's like, "Wow, thank you so much. Really appreciate it." The next day, I to my phone, I got a text message, and it was a picture of a Corvette brochure. He'd gone off to the dealership with his new 370,000. He bought himself a brand new car. And so
That's
I got to
great.
drive that one last summer in Muskoka. That was a lot of fun.
That's fun. I the first condo investment I made, I did the exact same thing. It was at Bay and Dundas. I refinanced it. I didn't sell it, but I pulled out the equity, didn't pay taxes, and I went and bought my first nice car.
Yeah, that you did it the smart way. He sold it. You refied it.
Yeah. I still have that one. It's gone up a lot.
That's awesome.
That's great. I love those stories.
Me too.
I would love to hear more about this project. So Apex, I'll let you get into the details, but for me, the reason why I like it is obviously it's Hamilton. It's in the pocket of Hamilton where I really like. There's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of spending. It's very close to the hospitals, very close to the coming LRT line, which connects it to McMaster. So it's close to students, jobs, lifestyle, all that stuff that makes things positive. But what is very attractive is the pricing and the incentives and the deposit. So I'd love for you just to walk us through, Apex, the location, what's so great about it, what's great about the building, and if you talk about the incentives, that'd be great.
Okay, for sure. In terms of the location, I mean, the Hamilton aside, I think within Hamilton, it's probably the best located project available right now inside of Hamilton. We are just to the south side of Hess Village. Hess Village, for people that don't know, is kind of like, I'll call it the Yorkville of Hamilton with an asterisk with a caveat. You're not going to find your Rolex stores or your Gucci stores or things like that. It's Hamilton retail, but it's that kind of like that little strip where there's no cars allowed. You've got kind of the Victorian homes or the homes with the retail on either side. It has a really, really nice feel. Hess Village is kind of a bit of a destination place. And where this project is located, this is funny because this probably won't happen again. To build this project, we got an exception to be on just the other side of the street of the downtown boundary. So we got an exception to be, let's say, 60 feet to the west of the official downtown plan to build this building. And because of that, the views outside of the west and the views out down the south are basically, I'd love to be able to say they will be unobstructed for a lifetime. Who actually knows? But when you look at the downtown plan, no one else right now could build in the path of these views. So it's very rare where you have a site where you're not going to have another condo building showing up blocking your views right away. So that's all fantastic.
And then the views are of the water. So the views in this area are stunning because you've got the lake, you've got the escarpment, stunning.
Yeah. No, you do. You've got two great escarpment views to the west and to the south. And Hamilton's a little bit funny. For those that invest in Toronto, you're always the lake is to the south, the lake is to the south. But in Hamilton, the lake is to the north. So when you look at the north, you've got lake. You look at the south, you've got escarpment. You look at the west, you've got escarpment. You look at the east, you've got the morning sunrise and kind of downtown skyline or downtown city view. It's a phenomenal location from that point of view. And one of the reasons I love it. But on top of that, where it's located just beside Hess Village and right on major transit hubs. So the LRT, the proposed LRT is just down the road from there, like literally a minute 30-second walk if you walk really, really slowly. And then the bus routes to get to and from, let's say, McMaster University or McMaster Hospital are right outside the door of this. So you're about 9 minutes to get from the university or the university hospital to this location. And that's why our last building, which is literally a 30-second walk from this building on the other side of Hess Village, has been such a success with both international students and doctors, residents, things like that, or people that want to be able to get to and from the hospital easily and effortlessly. And some people like renting to students. Some people don't like renting to students. If you don't like renting to students, you rent to doctors. But I love students. I put international students in my last unit, and I love them, especially. I always get worried about rent control. What if rent control comes back? And
that's an important point I wanted to bring up when you were talking earlier. Talk about that, how this doesn't apply.
Yeah, well, there's no rent control in this building because it will be completed after the timeline when rent control has been abolished. But if they ever go to bring that back in the future, and you have the option to rent to a student every 2 years, 3 years, those students graduate, you bring in a new student. It doesn't prevent you from having some rent control measures in place, but it does allow you to reset back to market rent every 2 to 3 years. So, I own a lot of property in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, and a lot of those homes were built way before kind of the changes in the law. So I'm stuck with those 1%, 2%, maybe 3% on a big year rental increases.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I love condo investing today. It's, as you mentioned earlier, it's a lot less hassle. Like, you don't have to worry about the snow removal. Did the tenant shovel the sidewalks, or they're taking care of the lawn, those things.
Yeah.
But just the ease and the non-rent control aspect of things is a huge piece for me.
Yeah, you know what? So I went from a multi-res investor to a condo investor, and I never looked back. My best clients, meaning the clients that buy the most amount of condos, are investors who are savvy investors, but they're just burnt out. They can't manage a large portfolio of multi-residential properties. Even if you have a property manager, there's constant nagging and cash infusion. So for anyone listening, if you want to scale a portfolio, condos are the easiest hands-off way of doing it.
By far.
Reconstruction, because I mean, if we buy a condo today at Apex, we don't even do anything for 3 years, 4 years, and you get all the leverage of not having a mortgage, right?
You get all the appreciation. That's right, with no wear and tear on the building, no wear and tear on your unit, and then I think on top of that too, it's nice because when you get a new home or a new building, a new condo versus something old, there's a warranty aspect of it too, right? The appliances are all new, so if something breaks down, you've got that. You've got the cherry on warranty on top of things that helps cover you, and it's not like buying resale, that's for sure.
Yeah, James, tell me about the rents. You kind of touched on it, but like I'd actually like to know the dollar amounts, like for one, because they're staggering. And we've talked about it in our emails, and we'll send out more information about it. But like that's the cash flow part of this. The rents are so high in Hamilton. Your price per square foot is so competitive compared to any other market. Talk about that.
So, to be honest, this is something that caught me a little bit off guard too, pleasantly, because I mentioned earlier that we were expecting rents of 23 to 2,400, and we're now getting 32, 3,300, $1,000 a month more. The rental growth in Hamilton has been pretty staggering. I think the average increase in rent for the past 5 years, it's been 14% on average.
Wow.
Rental growth, which is absolutely phenomenal, especially when, to your point earlier, you're in a non-rent controlled area. The building that this developer had built was called Platinum. It's at 15 Queen Street South. We are seeing rents that I think are the highest in Hamilton right now. One, due to how nice the building is, and B, just due to the location, which we talked about earlier. It's a highly in demand building, and we just haven't seen these rents really in the Hamilton area until kind of the last project was completed. And I think part of the reason for that is a lot of the stuff that used to get built in Hamilton, it was lower rise or mid rise, and it didn't really have the same standard. Let's say we'll call it the downtown Toronto standard, the standard of finish, the standard of completion. So, as this nice new product shows up in Hamilton, people are paying for it like crazy. And what I have noticed is that our last building, even above all the other buildings that have finished since then, we are getting higher rents. And the only thing I can attribute that to has to be the location of the site and the ease with which people can get to the highway. They've got all the great views and things like that too, because our last project was like I said, 30 seconds walk to the south of this one. So it has a lot of the same views that I'm talking to you about this project having. This project Apex just has better because of it being, again, just located just outside of that official downtown plan and things like that. But the rents we're seeing are absolutely nuts, and it's certainly making me and a lot of people happy.
That's awesome. So tell us a bit about Apex. Obviously, we know the location and everything. Units. First of all, the rental data you were just talking about, I was using that for other projects to help forecast returns. So for those of you listening, this is an exclusive opportunity. This isn't available to the public and only to a few select brokers. So I was really excited when I got an opportunity to sell in this project and to invest in it. So I appreciate that. So let's talk about the building, and then if you could get into the incentives, which I think is, other than the location and the economics and the rents, the incentives are ridiculous. So let's talk about it.
I'm really happy with what we've been able to pull together. And again, just definitely being excited to be working with you as well. Obviously, you've worked a long time in this game, and your clients know and trust you, and we're excited that you were happy to work with us, because we were definitely excited to work with you. I guess we'll touch first maybe on the incentives. So taking a look around, we really wanted to give you something special. And we listened to you and what you wanted to take to your clients. So we have 10% deposit until occupancy, which is, I guess, a great thing. So it's 5% this year and 5% next year. So really tried to stretch out those deposit timelines to make things really easy for you. We have no development fee adjustments on closing. So
Huge.
Yeah, it's massive. But I'm going to go into like a really small thing that makes this developer a little bit different, and one of the reasons I really love working with them. Their last project that I closed with them, I think my total fees came out to just under $3,000, maybe just over $3,000, but we'll say $3,000 for it.
Wow.
This guy doesn't throw everything at you and try and kind of bear stuff at the end of the day. He's super, I guess great would be the only word to describe it, about how they do the adjustments, things like the carry-on fees and things like that. The only things you actually pay are those types of kind of smaller fees. There's none of the giant city levies that you get hit with. So we've capped that. So really, that's really essentially where you're likely to end up in terms
so in terms of closing costs, then like based on your previous one that you closed, like that is a fraction of any other market. So you're saying it's not going to exceed like the closing costs outside of obviously the transfer tax and legal fees, $3,000.
Yeah. I mean, so they've said no development fee escalation. So basically, where they are right now is where they're going to be. And in the background here, trying to pull up my my statement of adjustments from when I closed my last condo, just so I can kind of roll through these fees with you. But there's not a lot in there at all. Let me just pull this up for you, and then I'll go through it.
No rush, James. We could pause it here.
I figured. Thank you. Thank you. Here we go. All right, so I've got this up if you are good to jump back into this. And again, if I'm going off stream from where you wanted me to go, just
no,
back. Okay, great.
Awesome. I'd love to see. Thank you for pulling up your adjustments. I love that.
Yeah, no problem. So we've got a Terrion Warranty Corporation charge here, telephone and cable. So it's like $870 for Terrion. It's another $600 for telephone and cable. A status certificate for $100, $65 for LS2C transaction levy, $200 for the postal service, the mortgage discharge fee of $400, and the reserve fund, which is just me paying into my reserve fund down of $326. I'll send this over to you if you want to take a look at it. But I'll flip this right over to you. Yeah. It's next to nothing, and that's one of the reasons I love this developer so much is he doesn't play games. He just wants everything and everyone to be happy. It's a great aspect of working with him for sure.
And then, so I'd like to understand this as well. So tell me about the maintenance fees. The maintenance fees are considerably less than the average building.
They are, and so he always looks at his projects as, how would I like my money spent? So when they get into the buildings, they don't have pools and things like that. The last building didn't have a concierge, and the reason for that is they find they can substitute a lot of the stuff that a human being used to do with technology. And so, for example, at the last building down the street, Platinum, we have the Amazon couriers dropping stuff off in these little, basically they're delivering big mailboxes. And the second your package goes in there, you get a text message to your phone saying, come on down and get your package. They go, they press the link, the door opens, they grab their package, they close it all up. So all your Amazon packages are nice and secure, and they don't go missing like happens, and I guess in some of the porch pirate situations in Toronto. Yeah. So that's a great thing. But the biggest thing is when you're dealing with many condo buildings, especially the older condo buildings, about 10% of your payments go to utilities, wasted utilities, running toilets in the building, leaky faucets, people running their heaters on in the winter but leaving the door open so the dog can get in and out from the balcony and things like that. In this building, every unit and every utility is individually submetered. And so what that means is if you have people that are running their hydro like crazy, running their water like crazy, it doesn't affect everybody else. You are solely responsible for the utilities that you consume. And I love this as a landlord because
it's great for the investor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great for everybody. It's great for the environment. It's great for
Yeah.
investors. It's a wins across the board. And because of that, the condo fees have been able to remain so low. Now, I go back to the last building that we did, and the condo fees are still insanely low in that building.
Yes.
And
You guys have record rents in the last building, and then everything's individually metered, so the tenant's paying all of the expenses as well.
yeah, so we have record cash flows too.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Love that. That's great.
yeah. No, it's something that's gone really, really well. All the past clients, all the investors love it, and it's a common question, or it's a common piece of feedback. I remember people calling and say the cash flow here is insane. Like how did this happen? And so it's, again, you've got your rent, which we've said has gone up, but then when you keep your expenses low as well, I mean that's your money. Everything that's left over is your money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know there's a sense of urgency here because I know you guys only want to get X amount of sales done before the pricing and everything goes away, and the incentives. I mean, one other thing as well that you didn't touch on, but the pricing. I mean, you're $100 less per square foot than buildings around the corner. So you guys have priced aggressively. And this is a very exclusive, and I know it's time sensitive. So
Yeah.
you're going to give me, till hopefully the end of the month or end of the summer to try to help you with these sales. But maybe talk about, so the incentives. We got the 10% deposit. We've got the no development costs. We've got
Reassignment.
the reassignment. So those of you who want to flip, don't actually want to close on it, you have the option to do that. Sounds like your friend did that and bought a nice Corvette.
He did. We've got no. You have the right to lease during occupancy as well.
Right. Yeah. And then I know you've got some upgrades as well. So you're doing a $35,000 upgrade package.
Yeah, it's more. I want to make sure you use this right. So we've got a few different things. One, we have 4 design packages that people can choose from, and that is absolutely free. So you can say, I want my condo to look like this, 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 this. We've got those, and that's absolutely free. And on top of that, we have about $35,000 in free things that we throw in, that other developers may charge for, whether that's the heat pump in the unit, or God knows what, the upgrades for lighting or stone countertops or things like that, stuff that some people charge for. We just gone ahead and thrown it in. It's about $35,000 worth of value. And to your point, that's even more impressive when we've got prices, you said, about $100 cheaper per square foot. I think we're $112 per square foot cheaper than for now cheaper than kind of the average pre-con offering in Hamilton. And someone will say, well, $100, that's not a lot. Well, take $100 per square foot and multiply it across 500 square feet. Well, there's 50,000. Do it across 800 square feet. There's 80,000. It's a lot of money. It's a significant savings, and that's why we're only going out to a select amount of brokers with this offering. Is we want to make sure that you guys who do all the business, who have all the best clients, are able to offer this. It's a bit of a reward thing, right? When we go to our phase 1 launch, this stuff won't necessarily be around anymore. So, end of the month, end of the summer, I don't know how long it'll go for, but definitely, we've got it ready for you here. We want you to take it and help as many people as possible. A couple other points though, to do with incentives. Maybe not an incentive. Our site is shovel ready. We are site plan approved, so there's no worry about this being canceled down the road. We have everything, all of our ducks in a row there. You hear horror stories about developers starting projects, selling projects, canceling projects, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need to worry about that. This developer has a flawless 20-year tear-on history. They've never not completed a project. So that, in combination with shovel-ready status of the site, I think it's just one of those things that people can buy and they can feel comfortable when they buy.
Yeah, people want peace of mind in that for sure these days, and that's huge.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, James, I'm excited. I know a lot of our clients who have successfully invested are excited as well. So I appreciate your time. This has been really great. And I look forward to connecting with you and getting some more sales done for you.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Looking forward to talking more.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, cool. That was
awesome.